Welcome to JonGetsGames. Today I'll be reviewing number 9. This game was designed by Peter Wickman, and it's a tile laying game where each tile is shaped like the number of points that it is actually going to be worth. Players will be taking these tiles and putting them next to each other and on top of each other in order to build bigger and better multipliers for those points, and I will explain how the game plays first, and then jump into my review.
Setup for number 9 is really quick and easy. You just take the top off of the box, put this insert in the middle of the table, and then you grab this 20 card deck. It has each of these numbers in it twice. You are going to shuffle this up and then draw the top card. We see that it is a 1, and now every player around the table is going to take that tile and put it face up in front of them. Next up, we'll draw another tile. We see that this one is going to be an 8, and now players can start to make decisions, because if you'll notice, each one of these tiles is made up of a series of these smaller little squares, and whenever you place a tile adjacent to other tiles, you have to make sure that at least 2 of these squares are orthogonally adjacent. So that means you cannot go diagonal like this. But it does mean that we have a variety of different shapes that we could try to make work with this specific set, and once everybody's happy, you will draw the next card. So in this case, we have a 5. Everybody grabs a 5, and we can keep adding these things around the outside, and you can also start stacking these up, because the name of the game is getting victory points, and a tile is worth the number of points that is printed on it times its level. And the tiles that are right here on the table, they're not on the first level, they're actually on the 0th level. So that means that this is 8 times 0 and 1 times 0, or 0 points. So the goal is to try and set up a ground floor such that you can actually start getting tiles placed on top of them, because the first floor, when you do the first layer of stacking, that is going to be multiplied by 1. So if I was able to get this 5 up on the first floor, this would get us 5 points at the end of the game. But unfortunately, right now, there's no way to do this so that part of this tile is not actually overhanging in any one way. So we might put it just like that, and then we draw the next one, and we see that this is a 9. Now, the 9 is obviously the biggest value tile, and if we look down here, we can actually fit this, because it'll go right here. There's nothing hanging around the sides, and the 9 is a really good tile to score because, well, it's the most points you can get. It's also worth noting that you have to make sure that the tile that is stacking covers at least 2 different tiles as you go. So that is going to be a legal placement. That's 9 points in the bank for us. And the game will keep going until all 20 of these cards are played. At that point, players will essentially deconstruct their stack of tiles by scoring points from the top and going down. And whoever has the most points is going to win the game.
Let's now begin the review for number 9 by starting with a couple positive points, and the first of these relates to the process of figuring out where to put these oddly shaped tiles into this area that you're building. And realistically, that is the entire game. This is a bit of a one-trick pony game where you're just stacking tiles on top of each other and sliding them in amongst the other ones on their given levels, and you're getting points for these. So obviously, if this is a positive point, this is a bit of a spoiler for my final conclusion, but I do want to say that this is a great thing to think about as you're actually playing, because you have short-term things where you're just like, oh wow, I have an 8, and I can put it right here, it'll be worth 8 points, or maybe even 16 points if you're able to stack that high number. But you do need to think about the future, and I guess with a number like 8, it's probably a bit of a no-brainer to try and grab those points. But let's say you have a 6, and do you need to think about building a better infrastructure on your board by potentially putting that 6 down onto the ground level where it'll be worth no points, so that you can actually set a situation up so that you can easily put a 9 down, or one of the higher value ones, to keep getting more and more points. And as you stack higher and higher with these tiles in front of you, you have more and more to think about, trying to fill in all these little holes and figure out ways to match the numbers on top. And the first time I played the game, I just kind of flew from the seat of my pants and just put numbers down. Didn't really think about the future numbers that are coming out. But this game is a puzzle in that you know you're going to be putting down 2 of every single number. So once I played the first game, I realized that a big part of doing well in this game is looking to the future, seeing the rest of the shapes of the numbers that have not come out yet, and try to play so that you can actually do those things down. You don't necessarily need to have a big contiguous block of little squares in order to do well. It's more about just having the correct contiguous block of squares that might be shaped really weird, but if it's shaped just right so that you can put a 7 down on the 3rd level, that is worth a ton of points for you, and that's realistically what you're trying to do in this game, and it's a really fun process to figure out. Positive number 2 relates to this game's incredibly fast teaching time. In fact, I'm to the point now where I just take the game off the shelf, I say, okay, we're going to play this one, I put it in the middle of the table, I open up the box, I take the deck of cards out, I shuffle it a couple times, pull up the top card, and just say, okay, everybody grab that number, put it down in front of you, I draw the next card, okay, everybody grab the second number, now put it down there, and you have to at least match one tiny little square, and just go from there, teaching the game little by little as we're actually playing it, but you're pretty much going to be done teaching this game after about 3 turns because there are so few rules. So it's nice that this is a game you could play with somebody who has never played it before, and the overall game length is going to be pretty much the same as if you're playing this with highly experienced people. In fact, there's almost an argument to be said that the game might be slightly faster with newer people than people who are experienced, because the experienced people might take a little more time figuring out where to put their numbers down because they are planning for the future more than that person who's just sitting down for the first time. So I just like how fast you can actually get to playing with this game. I think it's definitely a strong point. Let's now move over and discuss a couple neutral points, and the first of these has to do with the amount of player interaction between the players, which is 0. You will do nothing in this game that will have any ramification on the decisions that your opponents will have. In fact, the only thing that really separates this game out from being essentially a purely solitary gaming experience is that when you shuffle that deck of cards, there is effectively going to be a bit of a variable ceiling to the amount of points that you can generate in that one given game. So if this was just purely a solo game, it would be a little bit out of whack, because if you played it one game and then you played it again by shuffling up that deck, you can't really compare those scores because the way the numbers come out is going to be drastically different. So you do want to play this with other people, because then you'll know that you figured out the puzzle better than they did. In fact, realistically, the number of your score does not matter at all in this game. It's just about having a larger one than your opponents. I've seen games end with like 80 or 90 points as the high score. I've also seen the high score be more like 60. And so either way, if you're looking for a game with no player interaction where you don't have any stress about, oh, what's my opponent going to do to mess me up, this is definitely a good option for that. And I have had a lot of fun with that. I mean, I enjoy interaction in games. I do admit I wish there was some sort of module or advanced variant or something that came in the box to add even a little bit of interaction between the players. If you look at games like Karuba, it is almost entirely 0 interaction, except there is this little race element where you're trying to get to those temples faster than other players. And in this game, there is no particular race. You're just trying to get the most points, just maximize as much as you can by the time you get to the end of the 20 turns. And that is fine, but it's definitely something you should know about when you go into the game. And now for neutral number 2, I just want to talk about the presentation of the game. I think it is a beautiful game. The tiles are larger than I expected, and the box is also larger than I expected. When I first saw images of this on Twitter, I thought it looked like a really neat game, but then I saw the box for the first time and thought, wow, you could put a medium weight Euro game in the same size box as this game that plays in like 15 minutes. And I was I felt like when I was going to actually open it up, that there would be a ton of wasted space. And there is, definitely some wasted space inside the box, but it has this really nice insert that is going to hold all of the tiles. As I mentioned, the tiles are bigger than I expected in the first place, and having nice big chunky tiles does help the overall experience as you're building these things up and you're stacking them up as well. Having thick tiles makes sense in a tile stacking game, and I do think they made good decisions when it comes to the colors of these things and the overall visual representation. I also just think that maybe the box could have been like 25% smaller, and that would have been totally fine. But either way, at that point, I'm pretty much nitpicking. I think it's a really good looking game with a slightly large box. At this point, I would usually go into some negative points to the game, things I felt brought down the overall gaming experience, but I honestly couldn't come up with any. So let's go ahead and move on and discuss the variability for number 9, and I do think that it is below average. Every time you sit down to play this game, the only thing that's going to vary it from one play to the next is shuffling up that deck of 20 cards, and that does mean that you're going to be presented with slightly different puzzles each time you sit down, and you're obviously always trying to get the most points that you can from one play to the next, and that's going to be different based on the shuffling of those cards. But I do feel like the fact that there's 0 player interaction and that all you're doing is shuffling up that little deck of cards means that from a strict variability perspective, you really are playing the exact same game. Every single time you sit down, you will probably find yourself fitting some of the numbers together in similar ways from one game to the next based off of how they're going to come out from the top of that deck and at what point of the game. If they all come out early, when you're building up that main base, you're probably going to find yourself nesting some of these numbers together in similar ways. So I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing for a light game like this to have below average variability, but I do think that's where it's at. Number 9 plays 2 to 4 players, but as I mentioned before, since there is 0 player interaction, you could effectively play this game with 1,000 people if you had enough copies of this game. And because of that, I feel like there is very little difference between playing this game versus 1 opponent or playing this game versus 3 opponents. I do think it is best at 4, mostly because, as I mentioned before, this is essentially a contest trying to figure out if you can do the best with the puzzle that comes out of that deck, if you can push your luck in the best sort of ways and fit things together and have the highest score. Well, if you beat 3 other people, that's going to feel a little bit better than just beating one other person. You will have a feeling like maybe you really did come up with likely the best possible outcome for that one specific deck, or you will get as close as possible to that. I could easily see getting 2 copies of this game if it happened to be in the game group like that, and playing an 8-person game, and then really feeling a great sense of accomplishment to be the person who wins that one. So I guess realistically, if there was a massive version of number 9, that would still probably be the best player count, because you will have a better idea of how well you did compared to the broad spectrum of actions and possible options that you could have done while you're playing the game. In conclusion, I've played number 9 4 times at this point, and I could easily see that number quadrupling because this game is so easy to get to the table, and it's so much fun when I'm actually playing it. It seems to combine together the things that I want out of a short filler style game into a slightly large box, but it is also probably one of the best filler games that I've ever played, because it really makes me feel attached, and it makes me feel like I own the decisions that I make and the ranking that I am at once the game is over, more so than pretty much any other filler that I've played, because, well, usually in a 15-minute game, I just don't feel emotionally invested in the decisions I'm making, and when the game is over, if I came dead last, it's like, well, okay, it was only 15 minutes, and you know what? I had really bad card draw luck, or man, when I roll those dice, they just really didn't work out well for me, and I only took 7 turns, so, that's a big part of the game. But when it comes to number 9, you are taking 20 turns over the course of the game, and I'd say that probably at least 15 of those are going to be good decisions where you're actually thinking about what you want right now and what you want in the future. But also that means that since you're all playing the same exact puzzle and the only variance comes from shuffling up that deck and then everybody plays out the same puzzle, that means that if you lost, you made poorer decisions than your friends. And it means that if you won, you really did make the best decisions compared to the people around the table. And I like having the ability to have that ownership over how I do in a game. And I think that's why I'm emotionally invested in the actual play of the game. And so the decisions that I'm making feel more important, even though I'm going to be only doing them over the course of a 15-minute period. The other thing is, with a quick game, you want to be able to get into that game quickly, because odds are good you are waiting for maybe another game to finish up, or you're waiting for other people to show up to a game day or something like that. And with this game, the time between touching the box on the shelf and actually making decisions as you're playing it could be about 60 seconds, and that includes you actually teaching the game to new players, because you can teach it as you're playing it, and you just pop open the top of the box and you just shuffle up those cards and you just go right into the game. It's already set up there in the box, and that's why I don't really mind that the box seems to be a little bit bigger than I'd overall like, because the insert really is nice, and I think that it's important to be able to get into these games quickly and also get out of these games quickly, because you're probably going to be jumping into something else. So in general and overall, I really recommend this game. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy the puzzle of actually figuring out how to maximize my score. It's aesthetically pleasing on the table. People have often commented while it's being played that it just looks like an interesting game. Like, it's a tile laying game where the tiles look like the number of points they are. That's just such a neat idea, and the game really does come together in a great filler package that I really do recommend to pretty much anyone. As always, I'd like to thank everyone who's been supporting this channel through Patreon, including all of these producer level pledges. If you too would like to directly support the channel, you could do so at patreon.com/JonGetsGames, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you'd like to see more in-depth board game reviews like this one, as well as full game playthroughs and vlogs, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.